So the third one, this was really big and very, very, very serious. This was a data center that got hacked. So a private cloud provider. And they housed multiple companies. Their back end, they were running primarily Cisco, UCS, VMware, and in process of making many updates to that. They used to use Commvault and they were switching to Veeam and they were halfway in between that migration. They did have offsite backups going to Iron Mountain, and they had multiple locations across the United States. And their primary tool for DR was using a tool called Zerto, which is a really cool replication software package. All right, so what happened? So the data center here was breached. One of their many clients was the entry point. Black Hat was the threat actor. So this, we call it client zero or patient zero, whatever you want to call it. They had a device, a VPN device that was being managed by the data center. And apparently it was set up a long time ago, and this particular account also happened to match the password of their VMware administrative console. So the Black Cat group was good enough that they got into this one location and they were able to then break into the hypervisor. Now, the suspicion was that this Black Cat group was not aware that they were infiltrating a data center. They did exfiltrate data, but only with patient zero, which was the indicator that they weren't really sure what they were doing. They just knew they had a lot of machines, a lot that they could get at. Encryption was very, very fast, and all of the OS layer protections offered little protection as the VMDKs were hit. Now, they did have signs ahead of time that they were monitoring their outbound logs. They kind of knew something was happening, but it wasn't definitive. And they did have some clues, and maybe they could have done a better job of recognizing it because they did have clues that they were being attacked. So this one was particularly bad because they found the Commvault solution, and in fact, that was one of the signs that things were not in place because Commvault was acting very weird, and they basically had to restore from a week-old backups and restored for multiple clients. I don't exactly know how many, and I don't even want to speculate how many companies were affected. We also suspect that the ransomware was paid, as mysteriously a month later, a restoration tool became available, 6 weeks, and we were able to get some unrestorable systems. But most of the clients that GSI worked with restored from backup, and any machine that they couldn't, they did rebuild. For the couple of machines that couldn't easily be rebuilt, they did restore them. FBI was involved from multiple locations across the country because their data centers were in multiple cities. Lessons learned, yeah, quite a few here. I'll just do some high-level ones so I can get into some of the other material that we were looking into. Credential separation. This is a classic where they modernized architecture and failed to update some of the RBAC solutions. So immutable backups were definitely a necessity and not provided at many of the places that we worked with. I mentioned this before. Traditional DR solutions are great for hardware and network fails, but not for sophisticated ransomware attacks, and this was one of those. Outbound SIM was critical, and also trust from advisors was needed. It felt like they could have done a better job of modernizing their architecture and bringing in bigger professionals in advance. Hindsight is 20/20 on that one, though. some tools. I mean, Cylance was brought in to help remediate and determine root cause and all that. But CrowdStrike or Carbon Black, something like that, was definitely needed to scan any restores that were restored. I mean, you have to make sure that the files that you're restoring from backup aren't also infected. So you need that tool. In this case, they definitely needed a more advanced SIM solution they were using. They had SIM in place, but I think they were either ignoring or needed better warning lights that there was something. That could have used more threat intelligence people on staff itself. They're a big enough company, they could have. Zero trust and ring fencing maybe would have helped, but again, we're dealing with a hypervisor attack, and you need to be concerned about that. I will voice my opinion on hypervisors. I tend to be a big, and this is just my opinion. You can say John Bassett said he prefers using cloud native hypervisors over a private cloud with VMware, and or even using VMware on a cloud. VMware is a target. If you get to the hypervisor of, let's say, Oracle Cloud or AWS or Microsoft Azure, the whole world's going to be in big trouble. Those hypervisors, they're not completely innocent. I know for sure that Oracle's did have a denial of service attack occur on some clients at the hypervisor layer, which is unusual. It didn't bring anything, didn't cause any damage other than outages, and they were able to identify it quickly. But it just feels to me that it's going to be harder to break into a cloud native hypervisor over VMware. I know some people might like to take VMware and move their entire infrastructure from either on-premise or a private cloud and move it into the cloud. But I would hope that your plan would have something in the future to go to more cloud native. Again, it's just my personal preference.